And the people said, Amen. I'm Michael Kinnamon, the General Secretary of the National Council of Churches in the USA, and it seems to me my lot in life to speak third after two wonderful speakers. So I'm pleased to do it, but I will speak quickly. My task is to say something about climate change as a domestic agenda, and I will do it with 3 points. If you agree with these points, please say so, all right? All right. First point I want to make is that climate change is not simply an unfortunate reality, it is a moral issue, perhaps the most significant, most threatening moral issue on the domestic agenda of this nation. Amen? Amen. The effects of climate change, cycles of extreme weather, crop failure, the coastal flooding that we've seen in various parts of the world will, of course, impact us all regardless of race or economic status. But friends, guess who suffers disproportionately? From native communities in Alaska, to small family farmers in the Midwest, to low-income communities on the Gulf Coast. It is the most vulnerable, those living in poverty, who are most grievously affected. Amen. Amen. Think of Katrina. Which groups suffered the greatest losses? It was the poor, many of them African American and Hispanic, and the poor, of course, were the ones least able to bear the costs of economic disruption or of rebuilding. The scientific evidence is now clear. This rapid climate change that we are now experiencing is not simply a natural cycle. It is in large measure the product of human pollution tied to patterns of excessive consumption and taking a disproportionate toll on those marginalized communities who can least afford it. And friends, that makes it an issue of social justice, the most grave issue of social justice facing this nation. Amen. Second, in this interconnected era, what happens in Fiji or Bangladesh or Malawi is a domestic issue for the citizens of the United States. Yes. I remember being struck years ago reading how the nuclear accident in Chernobyl tainted the milk of Swedish cows. But friends, that kind of interrelatedness is part and parcel of our world. The home mortgage crisis in this country affected homeowners desperately in places like Brazil. And in the same way, carbon emissions from our factories and exhaust from our automobiles threaten the livelihood of fisher people in the Indian Ocean. I am always proud to stand both with Harriet Olson, but also with John McCullough and other colleagues from Church World Service. Sometimes we sound as if Church World Service takes care of international affairs and we handle domestic affairs, but of course that's an artificial division, because decisions made on this Capitol Hill have great importance globally, even as what happens globally is of great and immediate concern to us in this place. Do you agree? Amen. And third, climate change and its effect on the poor at home and abroad should be of concern to all persons, but it is of particular concern to persons of faith. Yes, of course, the religions that gather here are distinctive, and we celebrate that diversity. But there also, I believe, are core beliefs which unite us as we gather today. Let me name 3 that are particularly important to me, I hope to you as well. First, creation is a precious gift from God that we are called to preserve and cultivate for future generations. Second, every neighbor is a person of infinite worth who has a right to live in a sustainable environment. And third, those who have received enough of the earth's resources have a God-given responsibility to protect, to speak up for those who are most vulnerable in our society. We who gather here may not have a common religion, but surely we have a common calling to protect the earth and to care for the neighbor.
Yes, sir.
Those convictions, it seems to me, bring us here today from our various faith communities in order to call on Congress and the administration to make climate change a top domestic and foreign policy priority. More specifically, we come here to Capitol Hill in order to demand bold and immediate action toward the end of reducing U.S. carbon emissions by 80% by the year 2050, and of ensuring that persons living in poverty here and abroad are enabled to cope with the effects of climate change and with the effects of our efforts to end it. This postcard, which Tyler will now hold up, represents more than 10,000 people in the National Council Church World Service constituency who have said explicitly that they want such action from our political leaders on the way to Copenhagen. May these leaders in Congress and the administration hear our voice. Do you agree? Amen. This postcard, I believe, also represents millions more who know that climate change is a threat, who want political action, who are even willing to alter their lifestyles in order to protect the earth, but who have not yet stepped up and said, "Count me in." May they also hear our voice, and may God bless our efforts together.